OIC, otherwise known as the Omnipresent Information Connection podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Peterson.
And I'm the co-host, Noah Hansen. The Omnipresent Information Connection podcast is all about your world and your unique walk on this path called life. We present fascinating, life-changing information from around the world that has been validated. We also authenticate the information by providing you with links to where you can find out more about what we are talking about on our show. This podcast includes historically accurate, genuine facts that have helped shape our daily lives into what they are today. Welcome, one and all, to another awesome episode of Omnipresent Information Connection. On this episode, we are discussing spiritual warfare, a topic that Kevin and I are very familiar with because we've had... Ooh, thank you for that, Kevin. It's a topic that Kevin and I are both familiar with because we've got years of experience in this area, knowing exactly what we are dealing with. Now, everyone deals with this subject at all points throughout their lives because this is just something that is here on this earth. While we are here on earth, we are going to experience spiritual warfare. We can be expectant of having to go through a spiritual war while we are here on earth. Now, Kevin, I'm going to ask you a question real quick.
Just one?
Just one for now. Why do you think that is? Why do we experience spiritual warfare? How can you explain to us this on this earth?
Spiritual warfare has been around ever since the creation of man. And for those people that aren't aware of it, spiritual warfare is a Christian concept of fighting against the work of predetermined natural evil. Okay?
Yep.
It is based on the biblical belief in evil spirits or demons that are said to intervene in human affairs in various ways. And so prayer is a common form of spiritual warfare amongst Christians. And so this is going to take a gentle, deep dive into both aspects, good and evil.
Yes, because of course there needs to be two sides in a war.
Well, yes, but the war is within, not without.
That's right, yes. Yep, and it's about the influences that will eventually be manifesting outwardly from us.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because we live in ground zero, is what I can make an image of here for you listeners, is Earth is ground zero, heaven is one side, and then hell is the side that heaven is fighting against. For us, our souls, our persons here on Earth.
No, let me ask you a question.
Yes, go ahead.
For those listeners that don't know, who invented heaven and who invented hell?
Well, that's a very easy question to answer, Kevin, and it's all based on my walk with God, and what I've learned in my walk with God is heaven was created both by God, mainly God, of course, and then all of the heavenly host. Jesus Christ himself took part in creation as well. God also created hell, and many people just don't come across someone saying this to them in their lives, but I believe God created hell because it is a space for those souls who have departed from God to be able to go to. They aren't just snuffed out of existence, they actually go to a place.
So the difference between thinking and knowing is miles apart, right?
That's right.
The reason why God created both heaven and hell is because he loves us so much that he needed and wanted and desired for us to have a final resting place, one decision way or another.
Yeah, now some people may be still thinking this is very cruel. How could God do this? How could God put a place in existence that is a place of eternal suffering?
Eternal suffering is man-made.
That's right, yes.
So what you do as a human being reflects you in spirit.
That's right. So when you have departed ground zero, you have a choice.
Well, the option is there only if your knowledge of its presence is there.
That's right, right.
Because
So
there are people in the world that have never heard of God or Satan.
yes.
What happens to them?
Well, of course, as we all know, we are saved by grace, the grace of God, through faith in God. And how can you have faith in a God who you don't know exists. Well, in the Bible, it says that God is love, and those who abide in love are in union with God. So I believe there are, if you want to call them loopholes, there are some loopholes in those types of situations, though my knowledge of eternity and our eternal destiny is not 100%. I do believe that there is a mercy factor in that verse of the Bible. That was 1 John 4:17, by the way.
Yes. And we call that the earthly plane.
We call what the earthly plane?
When you do not know that there's a heaven and a hell, and you die, your spirit doesn't understand or recognize ascending to heaven or escalating down hell, right?
Yeah, I suppose.
So what ends up happening is that the human spirit ends up sticking on the earthly plane. We call them spirits, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and many would call this purgatory.
Many would.
Because it's sort of the in-between.
It's the in-between, right? But God created that too.
Right, exactly, yes.
And in this purgatory, this middle ground, is an option or a choice option for you as a spirit to be able to learn one side or the other. And in this learning process, you're going to be swayed very heavily every moment that you're in it.
And that's what we would call spiritual warfare, is the swaying factors.
Mm-hmm.
So what does the swaying factors, how do we perceive these swaying factors? That's what I want to talk about next.
Yes. The swaying factors is that we have grown to be able to recognize, realize, and experience real authenticated truth, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
It resonates.
But we also have been subjected to and have been unappropriately given to us the same negative as well.
Right, authenticated lies.
Right. So with that being said, is that in between is called a learning period of time. You either learn from your mistakes, your misguidedness, your inappropriateness, your lack of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fifth element is that you are now put into a position to where you cannot no longer from that day forward be able to deny there's a heaven or hell. That you know with clarity that there's something else other than just the spirit plane.
Yes, and that's only the beginning.
That's only the beginning, right?
Because once you open up to that, the world is now much bigger than what you once thought.
Because if everyone went to heaven and if everyone just went to hell, then there would not be ever, sounds like an echo, right?
Okay, yeah, I hear you.
Spirits on earth.
Echoes. You saying spirits are echoes on earth?
Spirits are not only echoes on earth, but certain people that have passed on have got spiritual remnants that have been embedded into time that are on a constant repeat. It's like Groundhog's Day.
Yes.
Every day, right?
Right, yeah, I understand. And it's interesting perspective. I love that you gave that, Kevin, because we've talked about this before, where everything that you do, think, and say leaves an imprint in eternity that is eternal. So that's always there. And for the eternal realm, it's not past, present, or future. It just is. It's there where you left it, in time, on this earth, in the place that you left it at. And so it does have spiritual echoes. This is why many people, when they go to what once was a gigantic battlefield, they feel some eerie feelings. And when you go to a place of great joy over many years, then you often are uplifted in those places, just being there.
And that's the spiritual environment of the person or people that resided there once before.
Yes, and now we can create our own spiritual environments, which is a big aspect of spiritual warfare.
Mm-hmm.
The spiritual environment that we create is based on our state of mind, based on our true intention, and where our heart is.
So, Noah, what is the difference between war and warfare?
Well, war is, one war is going on. There is one major war, right? The war between good and evil. Warfare is the actions that are taking place in this war.
Yeah. War should be understood as an actual, intentional, and widespread armed conflict between political communities and therefore is defined as a form of political violence or intervention. Warfare refers to the common activities and characteristics of types of war or wars in general, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So when we're talking about warfare and spiritual warfare, you have to understand is that there's multiple elements that are in play.
Yes, and there are many ways that we can conduct spiritual warfare. We can defend ourselves, we can defend others, we can take on the offense of evil forces and be on the offensive towards these evil forces in multiple ways.
Mm-hmm. But which is bigger, war or battle?
A war is obviously bigger. Battles take place throughout wars. Why do you ask?
Because we, as human beings, have both a battle and a war within us.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to proclaim that one is higher and or more important is irrelevant. Because they are in actuality a battle and a warfare going on within us that creates the outcome of war and or warfare or a battle in the outcome.
Yes, and anyone who knows the Bible knows that God rejoices very much so at the winning of any soul, the restoration of any soul from this place of evil from one side to the other. So there are many celebrations in warfare as well. And I believe that it's not, a constant battle, but it is a pretty constant war while we're here on earth until the day that God does return.
And do you know what that is called? It's called a spiritual stronghold. War and warfare, right?
Yes. Yep.
So a spiritual stronghold is a habitual pattern of thought built into one's thought life. Satan and his minions want to capture the minds of people. The mind is the citadel of the soul. He who controls the mind controls a very strategic place, right?
That makes sense.
So spiritual warfare is emotional, physical, and spiritual. It is always a three-part event.
Yes. Yep. Now, something I want to bring up is a topic that is very confusing to many people, including myself for many years, when it comes to these spiritual battles, this spiritual warfare.
Mm-hmm.
It has everything to do with our mind and what it is, how it works. So we have multiple senses, Kevin. We have more senses than we're told. We also have inner senses. Now, the one inner sense that I want to highlight here is inner hearing, because what does the hearing? What inside of us does that inner sensing? It's the mind, right?
It's the mind, right?
That's what picks it up.
But it's the heart that sends that vibe to the mind to be able to acknowledge.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. That's another topic we talk about. There's more communication from the heart to the brain than from the brain to the heart. And as we know, the mind resides in the region of the brain, and the heart resides obviously in the middle of our chests.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we are picking up different inclinations, different feelings from our hearts that our heart is sending to our brain about the environment that we are in, not all of those, what people might call thoughts, are manifested by our mind. We have different inner senses, like I was saying, where we can hear different influences from our environment, and those who are not trained to do so may not be able to recognize that that inner hearing that they are experiencing is not manifested from who they are and what they want and what they are trying to manifest and think about, but it is something that is just picked up by their sense of inner hearing, by their sense of inner seeing.
And how do you acquire the talent or the ability to be able to tune into that?
So oftentimes when we are getting an impulse or an influence from outside in our environment that our heart is picking up and then delivering to our minds, it will be more instantaneous when it is something that is in our environment, whereas there will be a certain feeling or a certain impulse inside of us that we are resonating with when it is us manifesting it. We kind of have to muster it up almost. That's why, when we are praying, it sometimes starts off slow, but then it continues to just go and go and go, and it gets clearer and clearer because it's now being mustered up within us. Whereas when we are perceiving something in our environment, it's more of an instant reaction that we have. It's sometimes, if it's a negative influence, then we have an instant rebuking that we go through because we just are rejecting that instantly. But we didn't muster it up. If we were mustering this up and we were manifesting it ourselves, then we would feel that coming and be able to stop it earlier in its tracks, in the process of it being manifested in our minds. So that is the main difference that I can perceive, is it's more of an instant type of communication or feeling that you get when it's a part of our environment, whereas if we manifest it, it's a little more slow of a process.
Now, Noah, let me ask you a question. Is spiritual warfare just Satan-based?
It is not. It is very angelic, actually. That is why you have angels like Michael, who are often depicted with a sword, with weapons of war.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, in the book of Enoch, it talks about how angelic beings were the deliverers of weapons of warfare, and those were fallen angels.
Yeah, because the battles of spiritual warfare are intense when a person decides to accept Jesus as their savior. The enemy will attack from all angles, hoping to dissuade and persuade the person from fully giving their heart to Jesus. He will use circumstances, events, people, things, and even doubt in their minds to steal their heart back to his ways.
Right, exactly. And so often it's distractions are a big part of how the evil one does conduct himself in warfare.
So, spiritual warfare is not just satanic, but it is godly too.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the reason why. God is fighting for you in advance, does not need permission from you to do so, because God created what?
God created us in the first place.
Correct. And so he's already got a, what people would call dog in the fight, right? So if God created us in his own image, regardless of how well educated, well informed we are, God is already fighting on our behalf. He is putting into place challenges that will aid us to be able to become strong within faith and belief that he exists, for us to be able to then become into union with him and to be able to team up with him to be able to overcome all the rest of the obstacles or issues that one faces in life.
Yes, and we'll be definitely talking about our own experiences with that coming up into the future of the OIC podcast, getting a little more personal on exactly what Kevin is talking about. But there are many battles that we have in life, many experiences that we might label as bad at the time, that we end up looking back and seeing how good it was that we did become strengthened because of that.
Well, yeah, we have become now battle focused because of the fact that you and I have overcome many of great obstacles and issues that many people would have folded and thrown in their chips, right?
Yes. Yep.
So with that being said, is that you have to understand God created you to be a walking, talking miracle, not just a normal human being, not just being Joe average, not being just, sensible Sally, right?
Right, not going throughout your life in a sort of neutral zone.
Right. So since God created us to be absolutely magnificent, the only way that we can alter that in our existence is to obey and worship false words and actions that other people have portrayed upon us without our own free will.
Right. Yes.
And this is where the spiritual warfare comes in.
Most definitely.
When you allow other people to become your form of worship, you are pushing God to the side. So where does bullying come in? Bullying comes in from being able to see a strength or weakness in someone else that they see within themselves.
Yes.
And instead of being able to face it head on, all they're wanting to do is destroy and kill it, right?
Yes, because they are rejecting it within themselves, but they are not strong enough yet to actually do the inner work, as many people would call it, to rebuke that out of themselves. So they rebuke it out of other people when they see it.
So to be able to do the inner works in accordance to God is that you have to, A, pick a side.
Mm-hmm.
2, if you think that picking someone other than God is going to aid you, to guide you, to inspire you, to be able to motivate you, to be able to get you to the finish line, not only are you misguided, but you're already dead.
Yep, you've already lost because that is the losing side.
Well, understand this, is that everything, both positive and negative, that happens to you, comes to you from your willingness to accept it in the first place. So, spiritual warfare is a form of acceptance. If you want to be able to have a more godly life, if you want to have a more enriched, positive life and outcome, then you need to be able to get out of worldly books and get into the one book that will transform your life. Now, people say, Pastor, you understand that the Bible is confusing, that it's not an easy read, that it's not easy to understand. Well, my answer to you is this. God has provided everyone on the planet the ability to be able to buy a Bible that puts things in chronological order. And you can literally start to be able to break down and put into place all these events for it to be able to make sense. Because I'm telling you that not everything is in order. But that is also God's intention. Because if everything was just all on one timeline, smooth as silk from start to finish, a lot of people would read the book and then discard it. But instead, they have to be able to literally go through what they call suffering, being able to read Mark, Luke, John, all these different books in order to be able to get to the bottom line of what they're wanting in the first place, right? So, to simplify this whole entire process, get a Bible that has a spot in the back of the book that actually, if you want to know about faith, that it tells you every chapter, every verse on faith.
Yes.
Love, companionship, all that kind of stuff. So it can be broken down into bite-sized, mitigatable pieces for you to be able to understand.
Yes, that's a very great recommendation. And those types of Bibles are often called topical Bibles. Mm-hmm. There are also concordances that are often in the back of most Bibles. And this is a very great practice to be able to do, because when you can go to God's word for any of these one subjects, whenever you're feeling one type of emotion, one certain feeling about a certain topic, and you're able to flip into the back of your Bible and discover for yourself what God says about these topics, that can be life-changing, and it has been life-changing in my life.
Well, yeah, and mine as well. But now I want you to take it one step further. What if you find out one day that all the people that were in the Bible are your ancestors.
What if?
How differently would you then pay attention to it and listen to it? We, growing up, people that were born in the 70s, in the 60s, all relied upon our elders. I would sit with my grandmother and my grandfather, and I would listen for countless hours the stories about their story, about how they were raised and how they grew up and how they lived and what they had to be able to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
And that is now gone. And it's a real sad moment in our time because we no longer have the grandmas and the grandpas to be able to look forward to. We've got the fancy iPhones and the fancy computers and everything else that distracts us and takes us away from family, when it's the family that restores you to allow you to be who you are today.
Right.
So if you don't have the opportunity or the chance to be able to be with a grandmother or grandfather, adopt one. And I know that, for many of you, you're like, oh, I don't know how to be able to adopt one. Well, the bottom line is that all you have to do is get into the hearts, minds, and lives of anyone in a nursing home. Go volunteer for a little bit. Go speak and talk to those that are mentally, emotionally, and spiritually sound, right? They have amnesia or dyslexia or anything else as an obstacle, and talk to them, listen to them, because their obstacles are completely different than your obstacles. This is the first time in world history to where we complain about things that we can solve ourselves, but instead we are programmed to be able to tell other people that it's their fault.
I agree, Kevin. If you hold your experiences inside of yourself and you don't seek the help from elders, is a big source, but even just from people who are an elder in that area of whatever it is you're going through, if you hold it inside instead of reaching out to those people and learning from their own experiences, then how can we ever really get past them? Most counselors don't have the life experience that someone may need going to a counselor to overcome some problems and issues in their life. Whereas if they were to just talk to their grandparent who may have gone through that, and in this scenario, let's say they did go through that and even maybe a worse experience, then they would get the quote unquote counseling that they need. Not saying that counseling is at all a bad idea for anyone who's needing help out there, but being able to, we're just saying, there are other sources, and our elders are a major one. And it's something that's kind of gone by the wayside, unfortunately, in this generation. Not bad-mouthing technology and screen time either. There's a lot that we can learn with all this access to information that we have nowadays, but we cannot separate that access to information on our cell phones, on our TVs, from the access to the plethora of knowledge that our elders have for us.
Right. And for many of you, you've grown up without a parent, a mother or a father. Not saying that's good, not saying that's bad, but all of you that have grown up in that situation have all wished and wanted at one point in time in their life to be able to have both of them in your life. So for those of you that have been unfortunate, I want you to be able to know that you can be able to continue to be able to use that against yourself, or you can start becoming what you missed by being that of what you needed the most. And it's not hard. It's not difficult. If you are missing the father figure in your life, become the element of that father figure that you're wanting and bestow it upon someone else. If you're wanting that mother element that you're missing in your life, find the feminine part of you that you don't mind sharing to another human being, and share that resonant, beautiful blessing onto another human being. I'm not saying that, you need to be able to change sex or anything else. What I'm saying is that whatever you lack, find out what it is or was, acquire it, so you will never lack it ever again from this day forward.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you then become a parent and have children, and if your spouse ends up leaving you, you don't have to be able to say, oh, woe is me, because you made a conscious choice and decision to be able to be both male and female, learning how each side works so that you can be the element of greatness for your children.
Yes, it may sound kind of weird to hear that coming from Kevin, that, you can be both male and female, but we all have male and female sides to us. And if we embrace both sides, then we aren't missing an entire half of the nature of who we are. Now, obviously, women have more estrogen, men have more testosterone, and there are factors that play in because of those. However, the way that we express ourselves is always going to be both male and female. And when you are trying to become an ultra male or an ultra female and cancel out the other one, then we are missing an entire aspect of who we are.
Yeah,
who we can be.
You're missing half the gift that God has given you, right?
Yes, and now I like what you said also about becoming the mother figure to another person because you were missing that in your life, becoming the father figure to another person because you were missing that. Because that's almost the opposite of what bullying is.
Correct.
Which is rejecting something inside of yourself and now rejecting it in someone else.
Right.
It's accepting something that you have missed in your life, becoming it, building it up in yourself, gaining it, and expressing that to another person. I think that's a very healthy practice, and it's something that can really be healing.
Yes. And then the last thing about spiritual warfare is that it's only a war if you worship it. Let me say that again. Spiritual warfare only exists if you worship it. So in order to be able to get over and get through, get under, get over spiritual warfare, pick a side. From there, reach out to people like Noah and I and other great Master Certified Life Coaches. Get the coaching that you need when you pick a side so that you can be able to be well-grounded, well-founded, well-educated, and knowledgeable about how to overcome other obstacles and issues once you had picked that side, right?
Yes, indeed. You will have more of your inner work being done at a faster and faster pace because you no longer need to repeat lessons in your life when you're able to connect with people who are accountability partners to you is a major factor of being a Master Certified Life Coach.
And we have become accountability partners to many, many people. And it's a great blessing that we're able to be put into that position because we are the living word. We talk the living word. We use the examples. We become the examples. We live what we talk about. We're not completely different entities or people outside of this podcast or outside of this video, right? We are equally the same as we are to everyone that we come in contact with. And so if you'd like to be able to become whole, if you'd like to become complete, if you'd like to be able to get the answers and to be able to get the knowledge and get the education that you so desire and deserve to be able to have, then we encourage you. We've got an incredible website that needs to be taken advantage of, and that's www.inanewway.com. Not only are there forums, not only are there other podcasts, not only are there other learning elements to it, but you have our undivided attention. A lot of these podcasts, a lot of these people that talk don't allow you to have their undivided attention. We give you that out of respect because you're hungry, you're yearning to be whole and complete as a person. And because of that, we understood when we were going through the same thing of what we needed. So what we do is we give you exactly what you've been wanting to be able to have. And all you have to do is be able to reach out to us at www.inanewway.com and or to be able to go onto Facebook or onto Instagram and to be able to message us there as well. And then on top of that, like it and share it. Share this information with those that you love, like, value, appreciate, and respect. And even those that you may not even yet know. Because who knows? The person that you share it with next might be your forever partner, may be the love of your life, may be the person that you're needing to have in the first place. But most importantly, know that God is with you all the days of your life. All you have to do is truly believe that he's there, and you will see him within you very, very quickly.
And why is spiritual warfare only a war if you worship it, if you believe in it? It's because if God is for us, then who can be against us?
Absolutely.
God is the winning side. So we urge you to really consider on which side you're going to make a commitment to. Because when God is for you, who can be against you? And now, another biblical teaching. We fight not against flesh and bone, but we fight against the principalities in the hidden places. The powers and the principalities in the hidden places. Meaning, the person in the flesh who's in front of you, who you may think you have a battle against, is not actually who you have a battle against. You have a battle against the spiritual forces that are influencing that person in flesh and blood in front of you. So keep that in mind as well. It's the environment that you place another in your thoughts, words, and actions, that determines the outcome of this situation.
So any obstacle, any issue is only there out of your daily practice or habit of worshiping it.
And that is why we urge you, to make contact with us. If you're struggling with anything, make contact with us and allow us to be an accountability partner in your life. Allow us to be a mentor, a teacher in your life. And allow yourself to connect more and more with the information we have at inanewway.com, because there is a diverse, widespread topic range that you can pick and choose from. And I am positive at this point that we have something for everyone there that can benefit anyone's life, and also someone that they know.
Well, not only that, but for some of you that are just completely weirded out about God and or Satan, because it doesn't resonate with you, right?
Yeah. Didn't always resonate with me, Kevin.
We have teachings that you can be able to utilize that doesn't pick a side. It's just natural laws of life.
That's right.
And so 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And we've got others like The Secret.
We've got the 4 Agreements, if you've ever heard of that.
The 4 Agreements. And the list goes on and on and on. So if you wanted to be able to have coaching, counseling, whatever positive word you want to be able to use to be able to be enlightened with, we encourage you to be able to not only call us, not only to be able to contact us, but reach out to us. And we'd be honored to be able to help you in the manner that you see fit, right?
That's right. Thank you, Kevin.
So, spiritual warfare all comes down to worship.
That's right.
It all comes down to commitment.
Mm-hmm.
It all comes down to making a choice, making a decision. And it's got to be your decision. It's got to be your choice. It's got to be your only option. Because when you do it for someone else, then you haven't done it at all. It becomes a double insult. Because when growing up and being youthful and uneducated, we end up making choices and decisions for other people for them to like, love, value, appreciate, and respect us. Take those elements out and respect, like, love, value, and appreciate yourself first and see what happens.
There you go. Thank you, listeners, for tuning into another episode of Omnipresent Information Connection. We have more awe-inspiring and wonderful, profound episodes coming your way very, very soon. Thank you for liking, sharing, and commenting on this podcast. If you have any questions or comments, we can't wait to hear them. We can't wait to meet you in the comments section and meet you on the forums at www.inanewway.com. We'll see you there. Until next time.
This has been another life-enhancing, authenticated podcast aired by the OIC and brought to you by the faithful OIC sponsors and contributors. Please tune in every week and subscribe to our podcast. And while you're there, explore our website with all the posts, videos, and podcasts that we have created with you in mind. While you're on the journey through our website, you will see our Patreon page where you can become a faithful contributor yourself with the freedom to be a part of our team today. Thank you.